Hi everybody, in this video I'll be going over the Excel 1A and 1B for the web assignments. So I've already downloaded my start files and I've logged into my office.com. Once you log in, we'll go to we'll go to Apps, and then we'll click on Excel. From here, I'm uploading a file just like how we did with Microsoft Word. And that's going to open up our start file. Also, make sure that you do follow the steps set out in these instructions here while you're completing this. In this particular assignment, we already have some data in our Excel spreadsheet. I am going to zoom in, so on the bottom right corner, I'm just zooming in so it's easier for you to see. And when we open up Excel, it doesn't matter if you're in the desktop version or even in the online version, you'll notice that it has a similar ribbon as what we saw in Microsoft Word. So your Excel ribbon is divided up into your clipboard group, your font group. Instead of your paragraph group, we now have your alignment group, a number group. We still have a styles group, however, the buttons here are different. We also have a cells group. Here's our editing group, and you might have an add-ins. This Y Sheets is just specific to my version, to an add-on that I had installed, so don't worry if you don't have this Y Sheets button. But in addition to your Home tab, you also have your Insert, Share, Page Layout, Formulas, Data, Review, View, Automate, Help. And then also this just depends on your version and what you use Excel for. You may or may not have the draw, but don't worry if you don't have this draw tab here. And so each one of these little rectangles is called a cell. And at the top here, notice that it goes from A all the way across through the alphabet. So these are your columns, and then on the left side we have our row numbers. And it goes down from 1 to about 1,300,000 or something like that, but over 1 million rows. And so the first thing that we're going to do is to just make sure that your ribbon is showing. So just in case your ribbon is minimized like this, just click on that little down arrow and make sure that you do click on Classic Ribbon. So let's take a look at instruction number 3, which says to select the range A1 through E1. So A1 colon E1 means that you're selecting everything from cell A1, so column A row 1, across through column E row 1. From here we're going to go up to our alignment group, and then we're going to select Merge and Center. So this Merge and Center merges or combines all of those cells into one long cell, and it also centers the text for us. Once you've done that, we're going to go up to our Styles group. We'll then click on Cell Styles, and then from here, we need to find the title style. So in the Titles and Headings section, the title style is labeled with the word title, so we'll just select that. Don't worry if you notice that it's cut off, because we're going to go ahead and adjust the row height. And so still at the end of instruction number 3, it says now in your cells group, and also make sure that you still have this one long cell selected. We know it's selected because you should have this green outline around it. So with this selected, we're going to go up to our cells group and click on Format, and then we're going to select Auto Fit Row Height. So it's going to auto fit it nicely around our text. For step 4, it says to select the range A2 colon E2. So I'm still selecting straight across here. Again, I'm going to do the Merge and Center. And this time in my cell styles, I'm going to apply the Heading 1 cell style. And just to be safe, I'm also going to format this to auto fit. And so these cell styles are really great because you can format the text simply just by clicking. You don't have to manually choose a font type or size. Same thing for the heading 1 style. Specific to the heading 1, we have that bold Calibri font type in 15 point, and it also has that blue underline for us. For step 5 now, it says in the column heading area, point to the border between columns A and B. So what you're going to do is to slowly move your cursor between your A and B column headers. And you'll notice that your cursor is going to turn into these two opposite facing arrows. And what we're going to do is to just hold down your left mouse button, and then we want to drag it over to the right so that Spiced Chutneys down here in row 7 appears fully. So make sure that you are able to see Spiced Chutneys in A7. For step 6 now, it says to select the column headings in the range B3 to E3. So just July through total. As well as the row totals in the range A4 to A8. So what we're going to do is basically called selecting non-adjacent cells. Whereas here it's easy to select B3 to E3, but we want to also select A4 to A8 at the same time. So what we're going to do is to, again, just make sure that B3 to E3 is selected. You're then going to hold down Control on your keyboard, and while holding down Control, you're going to select A4 down to A8. You're then going to release your mouse button and then release your Control key on your keyboard. Once you've done that, you can go up to your Styles group and select Cell Styles, and per your instructions, it says to select the Heading 4 style. And so here we can see that with that Heading 4 style, it has that 11-point Calibri bold, extra bolded here, as well as this kind of dark blue font color as well. And we're still in step 6. For step 6, it says to select the range B8 through E8, and then we're going to apply the total cell style. So I'm going to go back up to my Styles group, click on Cell Styles, and then in my titles and headings, here's my total style. So your total style is formatted with a blue single line above what you selected and 2 double blue lines below those cells. The last part for step 6 says that you need to select columns A:E. So to select columns, what you need to do is to hover your cursor over, starting with the A column. Notice that my cursor is turned into a thick black down arrow. I'm going to hold down my left mouse button and drag it over and release over my column E header. From here, I'm going to go back up to my Format tab, or my Format button in my Cells group. And then from here, I'm going to go down to my Column Width button. So for your column width, we're going to set this value to 16.50, leave this at default units, and then click your OK button. Okay, and so now all of the columns that we had selected are at 16.50. Now for step 7, it says to select the column titles in B3 to E3, and then we need to center them. So with B3 through E3 selected in our alignment group, we're going to use our Align Center option. Next, we can move on to step 8, which says to select the range A3:D7. So what that means is you're going to start in A3, and then we're going to go across and then go down so that we have everything from A3 and down to D7 selected. From here, we're going to insert a simple chart. So we're going to start by clicking our Insert tab on the top left corner. And now in our Charts group, we're going to select Column. So these are all of the different chart types that we can insert. For us, we're going to do the first one, which is our Clustered Column 2D chart. Unfortunately, you'll notice that when we insert this chart, it automatically puts it over our chart data. So what we're going to do is to move your cursor somewhere on this white portion of your chart. Make sure that your cursor turns into these 4 opposite facing arrows. And what we're going to do is to just drag it so that it is below our chart data. So it should no longer be blocking any of these numbers here. Before we move on to step 9, let's take a look at what our chart shows us. So on our y-axis, and your y-axis is on the left here, notice that it goes from $0 all the way to $120,000. And so what this does, or Excel does, is it analyzes all of the numbers that we had selected, and then it deciphers, or it figures out the best possible numbers or increments that should be used here. Okay, later on, we can also adjust these numbers ourselves, but right now we're going to leave this as the default. You'll also notice that here on our x-axis, we have jams, jellies, preserves, and spiced chutneys. And this chart just gives us a visual representation of how much were sold for each of those months. So as for jams, we can see that in July, it was a lot less than the sales in September. Same thing for jellies, whereas for preserves and spiced chutneys, you'll notice that it kind of goes down a little in August before rebounding a little bit up. So this is another great thing about Microsoft Excel, is that just by hovering your cursor over any of these bars or columns, it gives you a little screen tip of what each one of those stands for. So this particular one is for my jellies in the month of September, and this is the value, so $88,686.90. And of course, on the bottom here, we do have an automatic legend, just so that we know what each color also stands for. So this bluish purple is July, here this fuchsia color is August, and then this green or teal color is the September. What we need to do also, though, is to adjust our chart title. So what we're going to do is to just click once on Chart Title, and we can also go up to our Chart tab. So our Chart tab is a contextual tab that only appears when we have this particular or a chart selected. So in my Labels group, I'm going to click on Chart Title, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on Edit Chart Title. As for the title text, our instructions say to type in third quarter sales for fruit spreads. We'll then click OK. And if you notice that you had misspelled anything, what we're going to do is to just double click, and then that's going to bring back our edit title. For step 10, it says to point to the chart title and then select it. You'll know it's selected because you should see that blue outline around your title. And then up on your chart tab, we're going to go to our Format group, and then click on the Format button. That should open up this chart pane if it wasn't already up. Okay, and it also says to just expand it if we need to. And so that just means if it's closed like this, just click on this little arrow, that's going to expand it. If you notice here, this is another place where you can edit your chart title as well. We can also adjust the title position. Just make sure that you do leave it at above, however. But what we really want to do is to adjust the font color. So below the font, we have the capital A with the underline. So we'll click on that. And it says in the 6th column, select the first color. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I also need to bold it. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and close this. And then just like with our Word Online, we'll do a file, create copy, download a copy, and then we can go ahead, upload file and submit for grading, and then upload it. Okay, and next I'm going to open up the Excel 1B just so we can see this. I'll download the materials. And back in my Copilot, I'm going to go ahead and in the apps, I'll click on Excel, upload a file, and then select the Excel 1B, Excel for the web. And again, we're just going to follow the instructions here on the previous steps. If you do have Microsoft Word installed on your computer, you can also open up the instruction file here. But let's take a look at our Excel 1B. Okay, so again, by default, there's already some text in here for us that we're going to edit. For step 3, and I'm just skipping steps 1 and 2 as usual because step 1 was just to open up Office and open up this file. Also, you should have your classic ribbon viewable right now. Okay, so similar to 1A, we're going to go ahead and merge and center. This time I'm starting from A1 through F1. Remember that your merge and center is on your alignment group. This is a title, so we're going to use a title cell style. And then let's auto fit that row height. So I'll click on Format in my cells group and then select Auto Fit Row Height. For step 4, we're going to select A2 to F2. And again, we're going to merge and center. And again, this time we're going to do the heading 4 style. If for whatever reason the row got cut off, you can do a format and then auto fit row height just to be safe. Now for step 5, it says to select column A. So to select just a single column, you're going to put your cursor over your A column header until your cursor turns into this thick black down arrow, and then you'll click once. That's going to select your entire A column. Now with this selected, we're going to go back up to our cells group and click on Format. And then we're going to go ahead and click on Column Width. For our column width, we're going to change that to 35 and then click OK. For the rest of the columns B through F, we're going to change that to 14. So with my cursor over column B, I'm going to select across all the way through column F now. I'll go back up to Format, select column width, and then type in 14 and press OK. And so that's going to bring us to step 6, which says to select the range C4 to C9. So that 315 down to 165. Now we're going to adjust the number type. So if you take a look on your Home tab in your number group, right now the number format is General. And what we can do is to click on this comma button. So it looks like an apostrophe, but it is a comma. There's also a little screen tip that says comma. What your comma does is to insert a decimal as well as 2 decimal places or 2 zeros. But it also says to decrease the decimal. So you'll notice that you have 2 buttons to the right of this comma button. You have a decreased decimal and an increased decimal. So what we're going to do is to decrease this decimal 2 times. And so although it looks similar to what it originally was, notice that in your number group, that instead of general, it's now custom. And so it's just the comma style with the custom decreased decimals. For step 7, it says to select the column titles in B3 through F3. And then on our Home tab, in our alignment group, we need to select wrap text. So what that wrap text says, as we can see, is that it moves everything so that it's still the same width, the column width. However, it wraps the text into a second line as necessary. And so with this still selected, from B3 to F3 still selected, we're going to go back now up to our alignment group. And then it says to use your screen tips to locate and select Align Center and then Align Middle. So if you hover your cursor over this one is the Align Center, and the one right above it is your Align Middle. So your Align Center centers the text within the cells horizontally within each cell, and the Middle Align or Align Middle centers it vertically within the cell. And so it's a lot easier to see with the production and retail price. Notice that it is exactly in the center, both horizontally and vertically. That's going to bring us to step 8, which says to select cell E4, and we're going to enter our first formula here. Whenever you enter a formula in Excel, you always start with the equal sign. We're then going to select cell C4, so this is the quantity in stock. You'll then type your asterisk key. So in Excel, the asterisk key stands for multiplication. And then we're going to click on cell D4. So what we're telling Excel right now is that we want it to multiply C4 by D4. And then what we need to do now is to go up to our formula bar. So your formula bar here, notice it says equals C4 asterisk D4. This is exactly what we've typed in the cell. And on the left, we're going to click on this green check mark button. So this green check mark button is your formula enter button. The formula enter button enters that formula, and then it makes it the active cell. So if for whatever reason, when you were first in this cell and you pressed your enter key, just make sure that you click back on cell E4 because we have to do a couple more formatting to this. Okay, so still on step number 8, it says with cell E4 selected, we're going to drag down the fill handle to copy the formula down to E9. So with E4 selected, you'll notice that on the very bottom right-hand corner, there's this little green square. When you hover your cursor over that green square, your cursor is going to turn into this thin black cross. And this thin black cross is your autofill handle. So what we're going to do is to hold down our left mouse button and drag it down to cell E9 and then release your mouse button. And so what that does is that it copies that formula down, but it also adjusts as necessary. So this formula in cell E5 updates to equals C5 asterisk D5. And you can see that all the way down to E9 where it updates to equals C9 asterisk D9. Okay, and we're still on step 8, which says with E4 to E9 still selected, we're going to go ahead and go up to our editing group and select the auto sum button. And so by default, Excel assumes that we do want the total below what we had selected. And so here it had auto summed it for us and gave us a value of 56,329. For step 9, it says to select the range D4 through E4, so just these two. And then we also need to hold down Control on our keyboard. And then I'm going to click once on cell E10. I'll also let go of my Control key. And from here, we're going to go up to your number group. And it says to apply the accounting number format. There's two ways that we can do this. We can either click the down arrow next to Custom and select Accounting, or you can click on this button here. If you hover your cursor over it, it should say Accounting. And then we're going to select English. So your accounting number format automatically inserts a left-aligned $sign. It's also going to automatically insert commas where necessary. And so this is what our accounting number format looks like. Generally, for accounting, you wouldn't put $signs in the middle of your document because it's going to look really crowded. And we would just put it on the top row and the bottom row. You also notice that we're not applying the accounting number format to cell C4, and that's because the numbers here in column C are for quantities and not dollar amounts. And so let's move ahead to step 10. So I'm going to go ahead and select E10. Here we're going to apply the total cell style. Also, I'm going to select D5 through E9. And then I'm going to apply that comma style that we did earlier to those other cells. Except this time we're going to keep it to still have 2 decimals. So we're not going to remove that, but we can see that it did insert commas where necessary for us. And still in step number 10, it says to select cell A10. We're going to bold this. And then we're going to apply the 20% accent 1 themed cell style. So whenever your instructions say cell style, you should know that you'll go up to your styles group, click on cell styles, and then in the themed section, here's the 20% accent 1 themed cell style. So if you click outside of that, notice that it does have that light blue color as the fill color of this cell. For step 11, what we're going to create is an absolute cell formula. And I'm going to start by clicking in cell F4. Okay, and I am going to zoom in a little bit here so we can see this better. So with F4 selected, we're going to type in equals E4. It doesn't matter if it's lowercase or uppercase e. I'll then do a forward slash. The forward slash stands for division. And then I'm going to type in $E and $10. So what we're telling Excel is that we want our F4 to take E4 and divide by E10. Once I press my Enter key, this is going to give me 0.111. This is just a decimal. And so what we need to do is to apply the percent number format. So up in my number group, I'll click on this percent symbol. Notice that it automatically converts that decimal to a percent. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy this down just to F9. And so here we can see that our formula changed for each one of these, except because we put this $sign in front of the E10 in front of this first formula in cell F4. For each of those formulas that were copied down, E10 stays the same. And so this is called an absolute cell reference, meaning that it doesn't change. And I'm just going to show you what happens if we didn't change that. So if you just left it at E4/E10, and let me take off my percent symbol just so that we can see this. So let's say that you did E4/E10 and then you copied it down. Notice that you get these errors, and these errors appear because Excel is automatically going to change that E10 to E11, and then it would also change it to E12, E13, and so forth. And so it's really important that you understand the importance of absolute cell references. If you want to keep this reference constant and you don't want it to change, make sure that you create an absolute cell reference. Another reason why we use absolute cell references instead of just typing in the number, so let's say E4 divided by 56329.10. Okay, and so of course this is going to give us the same number of 11%. However, if we had to change this value, and so let's say this was 61 or 5100 instead, notice that your formula still in F4 uses the old total amount of 56329.10. So it's really important that you get used to using cell references instead of just typing in plain numbers. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and type in the correct formula, which was $E, $10. And again, I'm just copying this formula down only to F9. I'm not going to go all the way down to F10. And then I also need to do an align center. And then I'm going to adjust this to landscape view. So up on my page layout tab, I'm going to go to my orientation. So we can go to orientation by going to page setup. And then on the left side, make sure that the orientation here is set to landscape. I'll then click back to workbook and just make sure that you do have A1 selected, and then we can download a copy and upload this into my lab.